Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Into Miyazaki's World. My name is Betty, and I have with me today my co host.
Hi, I'm Avery.
Yeah, and we also have another special guest. So, welcome you. You can
Hi,
introduce.
hi. My name is Sarah, and I am here today on this episode.
Yeah, you can share more about your experience if Ghibli, if you would like to do that.
Okay, yeah. I haven't watched too many Ghibli movies. I've watched Ponyo when I was younger, and I watched Howl's Moving Castle over quarantine, and they were very good. So I like, I like, I
Yeah,
like
I'm,
them.
I'm glad to hear about that. And if you listen to our previous episode, Kiki's Delivery Service, you would know she also shared some of the wonderful comments in the episode. So yeah, I cannot wait to have her today join us.
Yeah, and so before we get started, just a little disclaimer or note. So we have a suspicion that this episode is going to be kind of long because we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of themes for most of us, I think, in here. This is one of our favorite Ghibli films. So we intend to divide this into a part one, part two. And right now, you're listening to part one. And so in part one, we're going to talk about some basic background information regarding the film, including the book it is based on. We're going to talk about world building, some overarching themes, and one of the major themes, war. And then in the second part, we're going to go into some more in depth analysis of our characters.
Yeah, so great. And also another friendly reminder that we're going to spoil a lot of details from the movie during our discussion. So if you plan to watch the movie, we recommend you to pause there and go watch it and just join us back later. But if you don't mind, we can just jump right into our discussion today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before getting started, I have a question for you guys. Like, do you know that House Moving Castle was based on a novel?
I did know a little bit about that. Did you, Sarah?
Yeah, I've heard about it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just have some fun facts about the book that I think I might want to share with you guys. So it is based on the novel by a Welsh author, and her name is like Diana Wine Jones. I gotta mess up with but so the book is based closely to the movie, but there's some differences that other people who read the books just point out while they like watch the movie as well. And I just collected and I might share with you guys some of the things I know. But in the novel, Sophie actually have like two sisters instead of one.
Oh.
Yeah, and the second sister is named Martha. And is that ring the bell somewhere?
Martha.
Martha.
Martha, like in the movie? In the
Yeah,
movie?
No,
in the
in the-
movie.
Oh, wait, there's a Martha in the movie?
Okay, yeah, that's why. That's the reason why I bring that up because
Okay.
you remember at the very beginning of the scenes where the ladies at the hat shops discuss about like, oh, they see like how castle is moving toward them, and they're talking how Martha is,
Oh.
how Martha's heart is being torn by House.
How?
So Martha is mentioned in the movie, but
It's not the
there's
same
Oh,
character.
there's
okay.
no relation that like she's Sophie's sister.
Oh.
But in the novel, it's very clearly, and it's very interesting because Martha is also the character that Marco falls in love with in the book.
How old is Markle,
I
though?
have
Is
no
the
idea.
age difference?
I have no idea, but
What?
yeah.
I mean,
How old is Markle? Isn't he like 5 or 6? Or
Well,
no, maybe more
maybe
than that.
maybe in the book he's a different age.
He's like very young in the movie though. So
Yeah.
this is shocking.
He's got to be older than 5 and 6 with the way he interacts with.
I don't know, but
people.
it's a scandal nonetheless.
He does. I agree. And so, do you have any more information about the book? Because I just wanted to say before we get into the movie discussion, I wrote a little synopsis to refresh everyone.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have that much. I just have one more.
Yeah.
That Sophie is in the book. She has magic.
Oh yeah.
Even though
Oh.
in the movie she seemed to be just like a normal girl, but in the book she has the magic because like her powers can like relive the scarecrow, which in the movie I think it is too. And
It's more vague.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
vague. She just like picks him up and he's good again. you know?
Yeah, but in the book, it's depicted like that's her power, and she can do all her best to like fight with the witch of the waste, and that's her
Ah.
power.
I like that
She
more.
actually, yeah,
I like that more than how they did it in the movie, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty ambiguous in the movie. I don't know if they kind of wanted the watchers, I was going to say the readers, the viewers to infer that maybe she has some type of magical powers. But yeah, I think I read somewhere too that in the book it's a lot more evident. Like they just state it pretty clearly.
yeah. In the movie, we just go through some scenes where people asking Sophie for a fun way that, "Are you a witch?"
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just very random.
Got a little Kiki connection.
Yeah, and I don't think I have any further, so you
Okay,
can.
awesome.
Yeah, we can move on.
So I have a little short synopsis for the film for those listening at home or wherever you are. Just for a little reminder. So this film was released in 2004. It is a Miyazaki film, and it follows a young girl who you've mentioned named Sophie. I believe she's 18, and she is cursed to turn into an elderly woman. So she also becomes involved with a wizard named Howl, and together they attempt to break their curses, their respective curses, while the threat of war is kind of like this overlooming threat throughout the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very well put. Very well
A
put.
very brief synopsis, but
Yeah.
we like we said, we have a lot to talk about today, so we gotta get into it. So
Yeah.
would y'all like to start with a discussion of the world building? It's kind
Mhm.
of been our tradition to start with that.
Yeah, we should, because I have a lot of things to say about this. But first of all, I just want to mention the setting is very different from the book and also from the movie.
Mm.
I don't know what the setting is actually in the book because I have not read it, but it's written by the Wells author, so maybe related to her country. But in this setting that Ghibli made, it is actually inspired by a small town in France.
Oh,
So I don't
Yeah.
know how it's related, but it's reminding me of Les Mis. If you guys watching that musical theater movie, it's actually also depict a lot of like struggle of the poor and the harshment of the war. Maybe
did you say Les Mis?
Les
Les
Mis.
Mis.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Les Mis.
Yeah, I went to France a couple summers ago, and I did really think it really reminded me of France. Very European-esque. Like,
Yeah.
the castle that they go to meet,
The capital.
yeah, the capital,
Yeah.
like Madame Sullivan. There's like gold detailing
Mhm.
on like the gates and stuff like that. And when I went to Versailles, that's exactly how it was. It was like the gates were like golden and stuff like that. So it was very European. It was giving
It's
giving that.
giving European.
Yeah.
I liked it though. Very, very
Yeah.
pretty.
Oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
In France when you went, was there also like because we get this beautiful like detailed kind of like mountain scenery in the film. Did you see a lot of that in France?
Not as much because I was in like the city part of
Mm,
it, but
mhm.
I'm pretty sure they do have some
Mountain ranges.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was more like kind of like city. Like I think
Okay.
in some parts of the movie you can see like statues that are kind of like I think they either look greenish or golden, and like that is how it is in France too. So it's very pretty.
Wow.
Anyway,
Yeah,
that
that's
is
so
my
cool.
input.
Nice.
Yeah. So what do you think?
So I guess the first thing that kind of what's the past tense for strike? Strike me? Struck me?
Struck?
Struck me. Was that we get this like blending of technology and magic. And so it's kind of like this steampunk fantasy vibe. Because Howl's Moving Castle itself is it's a mix of technology and magic, and you actually see the steam, and it's kind of cool, and just throughout like having that intertwined of the mechanisms as well as like the magic aspect was like really cool to see in the film, because I think in other Miyazaki films there's a lot more division between the natural world, which in this case is more of magic is kind of natural to a lot of the people in the film, versus the modern society of like technology and mechanics. We see a lot of it like working together well in the film.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love like the art of this movie because I think it's finished not too long after Spirited Away, but the art it looks so much more modern. You know what I mean? 'Cause-
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love it so much.
Spirited Away came out in 2001,
Yeah.
I think, and so 2004. It also could be maybe they just put more budget or funding into this film because that's
Yeah.
not that big of a time difference, but the art does look a lot more expansive in this.
Yeah, they might have. I don't know because Hal is voiced by Christian Bale in the
Yeah.
in the English version, and I don't know. I don't know if Batman came out after that or before, but
I have no idea.
No, it
either way.
makes more sense because Spirited Away also received a lot of awards.
Mhm.
So yeah, they have like a golden time at that time. So yeah.
No, I agree. This is when some of the greatest films came out, I think, for Studio Ghibli.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the most iconic films, I think I would say, Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get to see a lot of the countryside, which is a Miyazaki special, is glamorizing nature and the kind of just like beautiful, slow-paced life of living in the rural area. And then we also have the city imagery, which Sarah's kind of already talked about a little bit. It reminded her of France.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
The capital's very cool. And just in general, because of how the castle works, where like the doors, you can change location. We get to see a lot of different settings, and I think that's really cool. I think my favorite was the port city. Did y'all have like a favorite setting?
Oh, I think it was like I guess it's the wasteland. Is that what
The waste.
The waste. It's beautiful. It looked like a painting kind of almost.
Yeah.
Like the background. Oh, my bad. The background for the entire movie, just like in the the countryside, it was very like picturesque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
agree.
No, I agree with you. Wait, for the Waste Valley, is that when Sophie sitting in front of the big lake? Is that what I'm thinking about?
I think that
Yeah, I think
is
that's
part
one
of
is so
it.
aesthetic. I love that one.
I really like it's. I think the Waste Valley is just like the
Yeah.
I think that's interesting that y'all said the waste because maybe I'm not remembering correctly. I think the thing is that it's a moving castle, right? So we're moving maybe perhaps in different areas in the waste. Because when I think of the waste, I think of like the scene where she first gets on to the castle where it looks very desolate and like it doesn't actually look that nice. And you kind of get this sense that it just looks polluted. But then, yeah, there's also some areas where the castle moves and you actually see the mountains and like more, I guess, flora, fauna. You see more life.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know if
yeah.
it's the same place but they only really called that area like the Waste Valley basically. So,
Yeah.
but I really do like that area. Even when it was like really rainy and cloudy, it was
Yeah.
still a very nice like ambiance and atmosphere. Even though it did seem kind of dark and gloomy. I liked it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love that scene so much because I feel like that's why Miyazaki still imply his Japanese soul into his work, even though it's very like European. Like you can see how he connected with nature, like he always do in his movie. And Sophie just set like a table in front of the lake and just chilling there. I think it's so cool.
That's a very, very nice scene. It's like just serene and peaceful.
Yeah.
I think the reason that I like the port city, because I now that I'm thinking about it, the part of the waste that y'all are talking about, I really like that too. But for some reason, I was just really drawn to the port city, like where they're by the ocean. Basically, I think Sophie makes a comment. She's like, "Oh, like it's the ocean," and then Marco's like, "It always looks like that." A little sassy, but I don't know. I think I like that area because Sophie sums it up when she says something like, "There's nothing better than early morning market runs." Because I don't know. I just think that kind of glamorizes like this type of living for me that I feel like you can see a lot in just non-American countries. Because in the U.S. we don't have like these little markets where you can go and buy like fresh food, or at least not where we're living in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I really like that scene.
Yeah, it is I feel like kind of glamorizing like a more rural way of living, like sort of like simpler, like you're not going to be like driving to Walmart and getting all your like packaged stuff and leaving, it kind of glamorizes like simple everyday sort of things. Which I like that too.
Yeah, I think it's a good plan between the city life and the rural life because it's not like in the very countryside space, but it's not really in the city side too.
Yeah.
The
So
coast.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we
near the coast.
The
we get a
coast.
lot of different settings, and they like each are very different, like you're saying, moving more inwards towards the
Mhm.
capital. So there's the wasteland, which is on the periphery slash the countryside, that area in general, and then you have the port city, and then you have the capital, and then you also have where Sophie was living with the hat shop and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of different. I don't know. I think this might be the Ghibli movie that like covers the most like settings.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, something else that I kind of wrote down was just while watching it, I really like, and this isn't every Ghibli film, we always talk about this, the attention to detail. I actually just liked the hat shop. Like, I was just amazed and content with the design of that. Especially during the scene when she gets cursed, like that area of the hat shop. It was so like just I don't even know. I just really liked the setup, and it had like the flowers and their like the drapes and everything. It just like was really fitting for Sophie at this point in the movie, because she's kind of like she's a little prim and proper, you know, and it kind of matched her surroundings, or her surroundings matched her, whichever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. For me, the favorite setting I thinking of is maybe in the place because like everything around that is very like busy and very like luxury. But
Mhm.
inside where Madame Suleiman just sitting there waiting for Sophie, I think it's pretty cool because surround
Yeah.
her is inside the house, but there's a lot of plants and trees. Or maybe because just I just love plants.
It looked like a
But yeah.
greenhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wasn't
it's
it?
still
It
like
did.
greenhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely like that. I feel like the place that I liked the most, like detail wise, was Hal's room. It's
Yeah.
just it's full of trinkets, and I am a trinket lover if I'm going to be honest. And I feel like you could like sit there and like pause and just look at everything, and it would just you would just be sitting there for like 5 minutes or more. And it's like,
Absolutely.
it's there's so much detail put into it, and it was like kind of like glitzy and chaotic, and kind of just like how Howl is. He's like
Absolutely.
he's kind of vain a little bit. He likes like glitzy things, and then he's also a little bit unorganized and chaotic and everywhere, and that's really encapsulated
And
in
the
his room.
room like actually changes to reflect how
Yes,
he's feeling.
yes.
And that's something that we just see throughout the movie a lot, is that the setting will change. It doesn't always have to be magical like Hal's room in this example,
Yes.
but the setting does change to match the characters' emotions, feelings, and where they're at. And so we see Hal's room, it's very like impressive but also cluttered, like you said that
Mhm.
first time. And then later, whenever he's transformed into, what are we gonna call it?
A bird
A bird
thing.
monster.
Yeah.
When he's transformed into that, it looks more like a nest, and it's a
Yes.
long, dark hole. Kind of reminds me of like that Coraline tunnel, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, for me, this might be weird, or like might not. You guys might not think the same. It was reminding me of Harry Potter and the chamber. It's either the Sorcerer's Stone or the Chamber of
Oh.
Secrets, where they go and they see the basilisk, and there's like these tunnels.
Chamber of Secrets.
Chamber of
Yeah.
Secrets.
Yeah.
It reminded me kind of those sort of tunnels, if I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, it's like it builds the suspicion or suspension. Suspense.
Suspense.
The suspense for that moment, because, Sophie, she's approaching him and he's in this very like dark, state of mind. And I think anybody other than Sophie would have been terrified of how, but and it's kind of like almost trying to push her away with the way it looks,
Oh, my question though is, didn't she wake up and that ended up being a dream?
Ooh.
Am
That's
I
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder that too, but for
because
me, because I analyze it from the psychological like perspective, so I think she does awake, but it just happened because Hal's just running away and she
Yeah.
cannot chase him, so just maybe went back to sleep. But
I feel
yeah,
like it personifies how much she really cares for him, because in it
Yeah.
she's like tells him that she loves him for the first time, and it's really showing how like where her feelings are at the moment,
Mhm.
So I feel like that's what this film is. It's a lot of like you're physically able to see how the characters feel, like with their appearance wise and just
absolutely.
their surroundings and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And since we're still like on the topic of setting, another thing that is very obvious in the film that's always just kind of looming in the background is one of the biggest themes, which is war. And so I'm sure y'all noticed that like when watching it, it's either like through imagery or just through sound, it's just always there. You know,
Mhm.
and so like I remember when Sophie's first making her trek when she first gets cursed and she's journeying from the city to the wasteland. You see like planes in the background, you hear the planes, you hear the soldiers marching, and then you see them in the parade. Like there's just this constant element of like the threat of war in the
Yeah,
background.
militarism,
Yeah.
really. And even in the first couple scenes where Sophie is being kind of like stopped by the soldiers, you can hear in the background a couple people talking about the missing prince
Mm.
and how there might be war on the way. And it's
Yeah.
just always there, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely a huge theme.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's very chaotic and portray a lot. Like I mentioned earlier, that's why it remind me of Les Mis because people they just do the activities very normal, like usual, but they're actually a war just happening, but it's not like actually broke out yet. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It really puts you like into their shoes of what it's like. They still have to go about their normal day and do their daily activities, even though there's this big like event going on in the background that could change everything at any moment.
Yeah.
And just kind of having to live with that, but you know, you still have to go about your day. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like when we were on lockdown.
Yeah.
I still had to do homework for my class.
No, for real.
Yeah, and to the people listening that don't go to the University of Tulsa, we had a lockdown a while ago because what did we even say? There was a threat on campus.
Oh, well, there was a burglary nearby campus, and
Mhm.
then one of the suspects ran on campus, so they locked everything down.
Yeah.
And we couldn't
Uh,
leave.
but we still had to do our work. I guess was my point. Sarah was doing some Spanish notes.
Lockdown equals war.
Essentially. Well, it's just this idea that, you know, human beings, we still have to operate and go about our day despite these potentially psychologically damaging things that are occurring in the
Yeah.
background of our life, which I think is why psychology is such at the forefront of this movie, as I know Betty has a lot to say, and I'm very excited to hear what she has to say about the psychology. But yeah, it's very much war and the mental state of the characters. It's all intertwined and it's all reflected in the setting. So yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for real. This movie reflected so good for showing like the physical war that people trying to fight and also the inner war like you mentioned. We're going to talk about this later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In part 2. Yeah, so maybe another thing we could touch on is the score. And Miss Sarah here is actually a musical genius.
Oh, that's not true. I was in band for like all of high school, middle school. And I actually have learned to play the main score, Merry Go Round of Life. It's beautiful, really. I think a lot of with the score, and I haven't seen a ton of other Ghibli movies, so I wouldn't be able to speak to this, but especially in this one, the score is used to really like portray emotions and how the characters are feeling. So like when Sophie's feeling down, it's somber. Whenever she's with Howl, it's like lively. You know, I really think there's a lot of the score was used very well just
Yeah.
to portray.
And there's something about it that's so whimsical just throughout just the soundtrack in general.
Yeah, it is
Very-
very pretty.
Yeah, it's, you know, I like to study the Ghibli music, but for me, I don't like to study the Howl's Moving Castle because it really fills you with so much emotion. Like just listening to the music itself, I can guess where in the movie it is at and what's going on. And so it's too distracting for me to listen to passively. But that's also why the soundtrack is so good because it makes that big of an impact on
Yeah,
us.
it's like actually makes you feel something. Like you
Yeah.
have you're
Yeah.
feeling something whenever you're listening to it. It's kind of like the Up soundtrack.
Yes.
Married Life. Wow. You know, it's really something when music is able to emit emotions in you and stuff like that. It's very, very powerful, I think.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely.
No, for real. I agree with you all. But I just like love studying with this music because I feel like when it's very tense, that's me when I'm doing homework. So I
you
was
to
like,
be tense to match your mood.
I work better under pressure, so that's
Oh, I
why.
see.
Basically, Betty is living out her Sophie era, and she needs Sophie's soundtrack because I feel like the soundtrack really does coincide with Sophie's feelings and emotions. I mean, we know that
Definitely.
Sophie's the main character, and so setting and sound is usually matching her like internal dialogue and feelings. So,
Yeah, for real.
and then I think the other really good piece of music that might be a little underrated, just because this is not something that I don't think most people would listen to in passing or for fun, is the what do you call it? Whenever Madame Solomon like can strip powers, you know, that like little theme
Yeah, no,
with the
that
little
that's one.
dancing people.
Oh,
Yeah, that one, because that one to me, that's obviously not something you're gonna want to like walk down the hallway listening to, but like in the movie, it works so well. I don't know exactly what it is, but what do y'all think?
I don't know what it is either, but I really love that one so much. It's look kind of cool and remind me of Princess Mononoke, where it's playing so
Yeah.
well. But yeah, I wonder what the name of that song. I
I'm
don't
trying
know.
to, does it sound kind of like a little like sparkly and like magical, mysterious? Is that what it sounds like? I'm trying to
Sparkly, yeah,
remember.
mysterious. I'm like,
Because
should we look it up and play a small part?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
I'm
we're
just
always worried about copyright, but I think a little snippet will be okay.
I'm just saying 10 second.
Okay, just the 10
like
second
just like
rule.
really, really short.
So Madam Solomon, magic gone. I don't know the magic go bye bye. Spirits chanting. That's what it's called. Okay, let's see.
Okay, yeah.
Let's see. Is that 10 seconds? Oh, 10
Oh.
second mark. Okay, that's all we get. Yeah. So it's that sound. Hopefully that sounded audible. Maybe we'll go back and edit it. But yeah, I there's something about it. I think it says spirits chanting, and that's exactly what it sounds like. So I think that is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it so good. And I do see the Princess Mononoke connection. I think it's because it's like in this movie they really merge like nature and magic. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like nature has this like intrinsic magical value, and you also kind of see that in Princess Mononoke because like we have forest spirits and like the forest god and everything. So I feel like maybe that's the comparison here.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's why I love it so much. Like it's playing very well how magic just be there into the movie and motivate you to move on the next part or like reflect the bigger theme
Oh
of the
yeah.
movie. But yeah. Yeah, okay, I lost you guys there. I'm just saying
It's okay.
I'm just saying that song make me feel like it reflects the bigger theme of the
Oh,
I see.
movie and
Oh.
other things. Yeah, that's why I'm asking. Like, does it make sense?
No, you're okay.
'Cause, yeah.
I think it's because I turned around for a second to look at the the computer, so I missed a little bit of what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Do I think it reflects the larger theme? What do you, Sarah? I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you, what do you think?
Oh my goodness. Which soundtrack? The main one?
The magic one.
The one we're-
The magic one?
The one we're talking about, the spirits
Ooh.
chanting.
I don't.
What do we? It is very different
It
compared to
is
the other
different.
songs in the soundtrack, and I do think this could be a good point of analysis. Because why? Why would they intentionally make it so distinctively different? Sorry,
I
we're like all
mean,
just looking at Sarah.
I've maybe it's because it's a part where they're taking away her power, so it's really like, it's a big deal, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know. This is it's real deep. We're
It's
getting
very
deep here.
intense. It's a very intense kind of like little music, whereas the rest of them we said they were kind of whimsical and light.
Yeah.
Literally light in the way that Howl and Sophie were going like above the
Mhm.
city flying at that one time. Like the music sounds airy like that, but here it's very intense, kind of intimidating, and maybe it's because of what you're
Yeah,
saying.
they're stripping her
there's-
of
yeah.
her life force. Basically, she's becomes a lot older after that because she's her
Yeah.
actual age. So I think that's probably why it's more intense because they're like taking something from her.
and we hear it twice. So we hear it when the Witch of the Waste loses her powers, but then we also hear it again. Do you remember when Sophie and Hal are kind of like having this battle with Madame Solomon? She tries to strip his powers, and so we hear it a second
Yes.
time.
Yeah, she like transforms him into the bird thing.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Wait, she transformed him into the bird
Or
thing?
did he
It's-
transform himself?
I thought it was his.
Oh my
No,
gosh, I'm sorry
I
guys.
think
You're okay,
like
you're okay.
I think like her power make House to actually become who he is. So that's why
Oh,
that's why
okay.
I think it's very interesting because the
Interesting.
music just reflect like how okay, so it's very peaceful, not very something very intense at the earlier, but
Uh-huh.
then after that since the war broke out, Sophie digging deeper into House psychology. So I think that's why it's very impressive for me to hear that music and see how it reflects to bigger theme that they try to
Yes.
analyze.
It becomes darker. You can literally
Yeah.
hear it becoming darker. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Crazy. And we see the little like in those scenes with like the little spirit men. I don't know what to call them.
The
but-
boys.
Yeah, the boys. We also see them in Hal's youth, which I just thought was interesting. But I
Yeah.
don't think that theme returns there, the song. But we do see them. They're like
Yeah,
know.
what I wonder is that like personifying just like magic in its essence? Is that what it is? Or
what do they represent?
I don't know. Or is that yeah, I don't know. It's also happened in Hal's childhood when he's kind of lost
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like a compromise with a demon, which is Calcifer. But we love Calcifer. But anyways, yeah, it just I don't know.
I
maybe
wonder if
some
they-
chaos.
they say more about it in the book, I wonder. I wonder if they do. Because I feel like
Probably.
that's something that's a bit
Yeah.
ambiguous as well. So
No, that's true. We can come back to that one when we talk more about Howl later, because I think that would be a good place to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all had. Oh, I just realized in my notes. Yeah, I said the music fits the witch boss lady. Okay, I guess I was talking about Solomon. I just thought that was funny. Okay. I the only other thing I had to say about it's not even world building. This was more of just like a element of the film that's visual. Is the Solomon's little henchmen? They're not henchmen. They're like not the blob men. The students. You know, why do they all look like Haku from Spirited Away?
For real, right? I noticed that too. I wonder too. I don't
They're
know.
him but yellow. And
Yeah.
they all look the same.
they all look like Hal too. They all look like
Wait,
young
yeah.
Hal.
Oh yeah, young Hal had the same haircut, but he wasn't
Mhm.
yellow. That's the like.
Were they
it's just kinda
yellow?
Odd. Their hair
Oh,
was
their
yellow.
hair.
Their clothes were
Okay.
yellow.
Okay, I see.
I didn't mean the skin. I meant their hair and their clothes were
I was
yellow.
like,
Oh,
they were the color yellow? I was like, am I remembering this right?
No, my bad. But yeah.
no, I just think of something. It just come to my mind, but it might not be true. But so you say like it's similar to House when he was a child, right?
Mhm.
And he used to be like her,
Apprentice.
yeah, like
Yeah.
student. But then when he grow up, he actually have a yellow hair at the beginning, and not after he being forced to transfer into his real like identity. His hair turned black. So I don't know if there is any connection between like how Suleiman want all the student to be look like House, or maybe I don't know if House is her like first student or anything. But
She said that it was that he was her last apprentice, apparently. I
Oh, yeah.
think. And I feel like maybe that hair color is like how they want all of the wizards to kind of like work for royalty and work for the crown. And I feel like maybe it's like a conformity thing, like how in like the army they want everybody to
Yeah.
you know
I
like
agree.
shave their heads, look conformed.
Yeah.
I think it might be something like that with like the everybody looking the same with the haircuts and like the little little wizards.
I absolutely agree. I think it's to erase their individuality, because if we take Howl as kind of like a cautionary tale for Solomon does not want to see another student or subordinate in general become too wrapped up in their own like individual ambitions to where they, you know, become out of her grasp and she can't control them anymore. So I could totally see that it's kind of a way to erase their individualism. But I think Hal himself having blonde hair, I don't know if I think there's a connection there. I think that's just how, like, wanting to portray this, like, image, because we see in the beginning that
Yeah.
he cares very much about his appearance and the way he looks. He
Yeah.
seems confident, but he's
Yeah.
really not.
Very, yeah, it's very vain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
But that's also for part 2.
My
so-
bad.
No,
No,
not
it's
your bad.
wonderful. Yeah, it makes more sense, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So
So I have one more
Yeah.
song that I really want to mention. It's the very ending song of the movie. And I searched it up for the name. It say like The Promise of the World.
oh yeah.
But for me, when I read the lyrics, it's like the love song of Howl and Sophie somehow. But
Huh.
yeah, do you want me to read the
Yeah.
lyrics? It's very short,
Absolutely.
anyways. So it's like a poem now, but the smile that trembles deep behind your tears is the promise of the world since the beginning of time. Even when I'm alone now from our yesterdays, today is born sparkling like the day we first met. You are not in my memories. You turn into a breeze and touch my cheeks. Even after our parting in the afternoon with the sun beaming through the trees, the promise of the world won't ever end. Even if I'm alone now, tomorrow is limitless. Sorry. You taught me about the kindness that lurks in the night. You are not in my memories, so live forever in the song of the streams, in the color of the sky, in the fragrance of flowers.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm talking like I feel like it's more about the love song between the lovers because it also emphasize like the power of love like that really impacts them, like how they just support and help each other going out of their darkness. And again, I don't know why it's related to Les Mis a lot, but it remind me of the love between Cosette and Marius. It doesn't apply like how Sophie helps like how heal his problems, but the point I'm trying to say like is how the beauty of love just show you the powers that you
Yeah.
going to have to fight through your own battle.
That was very well put. I 100%
Yeah.
agree. And I think the promise of the world, like when you read the lyrics, the way that sounds to me is like the promise of the world is that you will have the potential to find love. That's what it sounds like to me, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to watch Les Mis now. You keep mentioning it. I must.
seen Les
No, I
Mis?
haven't.
Oh my goodness.
You're gonna love it. I love the music in the movie so much.
Oh,
So,
whenever I was in band, I had to play one of the beginning songs. I think they're like on a ship or something. I don't even remember, but like they made us play it for like a halftime thing.
That's so cool.
So
I actually this was quite a few years ago. I got to see the stage performance of it in Dallas. And it was amazing. My favorite scene is the barricade scene, just because when you watch it on stage, it's we're getting off topic, but it's so cool looking. But there was our random Les Mis plug, so maybe you should go watch the movie or listen to the soundtrack. It's available probably everywhere.
mhm. Yeah,
So,
no, I
yeah.
think it's planned so well because the setting is in France, and this movie also reflect the darkness time of France when people have to fight for their own benefits.
Yeah.
So I think it's put very well. It does also remind me of Dr. Pollen when he tried to
Oh.
say about the passion.
Of-
So the
yeah.
passion of something,
Mhm.
but it's not. This one is not really very like religious, like when we study in honor. But it's like the passion of love and the passion of how you're trying to fight yourself. So I think it's kind of cool to plan the elements that French have into this movie with that
Yeah.
setting.
And Sarah, so in our
Oh, yeah.
honors class.
yeah, no, I got it. I
Yeah,
got
in
it.
our honors class,
I was like,
our professor is French, so that's kind of what's
Oh, I
important.
see. Oh,
and
that's
so
cool.
we read a lot of translated French literature. And so yeah, I agree. We can see kind of like reoccurring cultural themes. So that is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Do
Okay.
y'all have anything else for world building or fantasy or magical elements? It's kind of the same umbrella.
I don't.
That's totally okay. So maybe just to kind of give like a little list to our viewers of what themes we see here without deep diving just yet. We see themes of anti-war. We're more pro, is it pacifism?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Kind of this idea of old age, ageism is very, very, that's probably one of the largest themes, I would say. Compassion, love. I would say change is a pretty big one, like internal change. And so we will get to that where we talk a lot about the actual psychology of the characters. But just like a little preview, something that I wrote is that I feel that every character in the film, in one way or another, they go through a process of self-discovery or reevaluation. And so, in some way, all of the different characters are unhappy with their lives at the beginning of the film. Whether it's Sophie, who's kind of like insecure and timid, working at that hat shop, she doesn't seem too passionate about it, or Howl, who's just kind of he's running from something, and we'll get to that later. Or even the Witch of the Waste. She doesn't like being in exile. She kind of wants to be in society, but she also wants power, and she has evil ways to obtain that power. But either way, we kind of see that they don't really try to remedy their issues, and they don't really appreciate too much what they have. And so I feel like Miyazaki kind of like explores how even as an adult, like you can redefine yourself. Because I think in past episodes, when we talk about Miyazaki's work, he likes to do coming of age stories and growing up. I believe this is the first film we've watched of him where everyone is an adult already, well, except Markle. And so it's kind of, I just thought it was interesting. He doesn't usually have main characters that are adults. And so he kind of shows that even when we are no longer children or adolescents or even like kind of teenagers, because I think that's what Princess Mononoke was supposed to be, that you're still able to have dreams and goals and, you know, have to battle your insecurities and everything. And so I think it's very inspiring in that way.
Yeah, for real. It's very interesting for me when you brought that up because for real, this movie is focused more on like how you trying to grow up on your psychology instead of like the physical thing, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I wonder how how old is Sophie, but
I think she's 18, but that is technically a legal age. Also, we have to consider the time period. I don't know when this is supposed to take place, but based on the way they dress, we would think a little older, which means that 18 is pretty probably like an established adult, I would imagine, for this universe.
And I think she's running the family hat shop, is she not?
yeah.
It,
I think
yeah.
she is. Her mom
Yeah.
just
She
running
just
around.
Her mom
super-
just like kind of just
Yeah.
dips, you know?
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of, I think change is, definitely
Yeah.
a major theme. It's a lot of character development. And I think they do it through relationships with each other, because I think before they were trying to
Absolutely.
work through their troubles alone, and only when they've gotten together and become sort of like a family, like even that's mentioned. I don't remember where that's mentioned, but I think Markle says, "Oh, we're your family now," or something like that.
Yeah.
Through that, they're able to kind of help each other with what they're dealing with, and
Absolutely.
even their like adversaries, like the Witch of the Waste and stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's
for
able to
real.
grow.
And even along with that, the fact that they are adults and they're still trying to figure out the world, which
Yeah.
is I love that, because just because you're no longer considered a child doesn't mean that you have everything figured out. And like the Witch of the Waste, she is pretty old when her magic is
Yeah,
stripped.
she's at least over 50.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
we're nearing 100 maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know. They're witches and wizards. Who knows how old they are? Might be like vampire
Oh,
aging rules.
like
Who knows?
Twilight. Okay.
Yeah. Not the Twilight. But yeah. So, and then even I would say even the one character who is technically a child, Markle, we get this sense that he has been kind of in a situation where he is forced to grow up early. Because it's like, where are
Yeah.
Markle's parents? How did he come to live with Howl? And Howl's kind of I wouldn't say the best father figure to Markle. He's kind of gone all the time. When
Yeah.
Sophie arrives, I think it gets better. And so even Markle, who is a child, is very much adult-like in many ways. And so he's having to kind of figure that out
Yeah,
himself.
in some ways more mature than Howl.
Oh,
at
yeah.
Sometimes it's yeah. I think Howl, he's definitely not what you would call a father figure, because he's very self focused, right?
Yeah.
Like he's in his head about things, and
Yeah.
really like focused on just his what he's
Absolutely.
his problems, how he looks, stuff like that. So
It's like Markle kind of has to be self-sufficient until Sophie arrives. He seems to be raising himself. He makes himself breakfast. He even kind of fills the role of like running the household before
Yes.
Sophie gets there. Like what he makes some sort of comment like like when he's running the shop, he basically runs the shop where they like give potions to the villagers. And he's telling her, don't tell our clients lies. Like, he's having to act like this adult who's in charge of the house, in charge of the shop, and it's it's sad, honestly. But I think that many viewers out there might relate to that, or I know I do personally, where you feel like as a child that circumstance kind of made you have to act older than you should have had to. And so it is kind of nice to see that when Sophie comes along, Markle he's able to act more childlike, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for real. I don't know. It just reminded me of one scene where how just making breakfast for all of them, and Marco he's eating like he never tried that for a really really long time, and this made me feel sad about that scene, even though it's just normal scene,
He was just gonna eat bread and cheese
Yeah,
before she cooked.
Honestly,
It's very.
I love bread and cheese, so
He just grabbed a big loaf of bread, though.
but like,
Okay, Sarah's like, actually, I approve.
I mean,
of
that's
that
a meal.
breakfast.
That's a meal. Come on.
Maybe okay, for a child.
For a little rat. For a little rat such as myself, I would love that. Yes.
I
don't
do.
know.
I feel like I eat like a rabbit. I just kind of like snack on things. It's hard for me to have full meals.
Sorry for derailing, but continue.
No, it's you're totally fine. So yeah, but we'll talk more about family in the second aspect. So I think the two last themes that we have, or maybe there's a few last themes. I think we can talk about war briefly. We'll talk about that more coming up. Also, maybe we could touch on the environment because that's a very small aspect of the film. Miyazaki, I think, explores it more in previous ones. And then we could do age and appearance, or we could save that for the next one because I feel like that's gonna have a lot to do with Sophie's in-house characters.
I think we could.
Yes, we
could
can
say
say
that one.
And I have a lot of things to say about Symbol, but it's not very related to the characters, so maybe we can discuss about that.
Let's jump into that.
Yeah. Do you want to do the environment first, or?
Yeah. This is a very minor aspect of the film. Miyazaki. This is one of his like continuous films or continuous themes that we see across his films, but it is less apparent in this one. I think it's because he's focusing more on war and compassion and those kinds of themes. But what we do see is actually, I think Sarah had a really good example.
Yeah.
That you mentioned earlier.
Oh, for what?
The environment.
Oh, the environment. Okay, yes. So there isn't a ton about kind of like pollution and stuff like that, but at the beginning of the movie, you get to see Sophie in her hat shop, and right outside is a big like locomotive train. It's just going through town, and just like a billow of just smoke cloud pollution is like coming out almost to where it's like a solid cloud that's just outside of Sophie's window. So I do think that is kind of like a kind of just showing that sort of environmental aspect in the movie.
Absolutely. And I think, and this might be more of a stretch, we have some like character designs where I'm not entirely sure if there's supposed to be a comment there. Like just the way the blobmen look reminds me of like a inky oil spill. And I don't know if that was intentional when he was designing those characters, but it's just, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him, Miyazaki. He's very detailed. So there's that. And then also I think the way that the wasteland is framed, they make it seem, it's called the waste, They make it seem like it's just this horrible, desolate place. And when we first see it, it does look kind of desolate. But then like Sarah said, there's also such beautiful aspects of it that go unnoticed.
Yeah.
I'm
so sorry. I'll say no next time.
No, it's right. You guys mentioned a lot of things, but I do agree with both of you. I feel like Miyazaki want to respect like the original, which he's based on to make a movie. So maybe that why he not mentioned a lot about environment. issue, but
Yeah.
then he never forget to like portray some of the aspect where human activities just like contaminate the environment. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I feel like I don't know, it's
Yeah.
maybe a plan.
And like I think there's also like a juxtaposition between the port city where you see all of those boats crammed into the water, and then you actually see like some bombs fall into the water at some point. So that kind of like chaotic scene, and you know, Sophie at first is very like excited when she sees the ocean. She's like, "Oh, I love early morning market days by the ocean," and then all that happens and it kind of ruins it for her. Whereas whenever they're in the countryside, the scene that we talked about earlier where they're having the picnic by the lake, it's, I don't know, I feel like it's a very clear contrast of like how humans and our activities can very much just ruin things that are not only beneficial for us but that we should appreciate, as Sophie does in that scene. So
Mm-hmm. And it's also remind me of like how you going through a lot of like chaotic life, war outside. You always love to spend at least like I would say a month or at least a week in the countryside just to like recharge your energy. For the environment, you mentioned about the port, right?
yeah.
I also mentioned this one on my notes. I say like how I just like make a list of how Miyazaki just portrays the human being activities that polluted the environment. And I mentioned like the plague smoke that Sarah mentioned earlier and the bombs that you mentioned earlier that might kill like some marine animals in the river, who knows.
Yeah.
But then they also polluted the road by sending some flyers from the enemies
Oh,
just
yeah.
to promote like some propaganda.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's destroy like the aestheticism of the street maybe.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Also, this probably is not very environmental related, but I just remembered this scene. It came to my head whenever Sophie has the curse on her and Howl like is first interacting, and he's like, "There's something in your pocket," and then it's on the table, and he's like, "That can't be good for the table." Like, I don't know, just in general, this war can't be good for the environment. Just had to do that.
Oh no.
Had to make that connection. All right.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
Are we
Yeah.
ready to dive into your symbols?
Yeah, so do you guys notice like any symbol to make you think about, or I can go on first if you need an example.
Prompt us, Betty.
Okay, the first symbol I'm thinking of is about the fire because I realized that there's a lot of fire. Which one is from Calcifer? It's a fire. The other one is from the gunpowder that they mentioned. So for Calcifer, I feel like because it's the fire in the heart of House, so it's kind of somehow share some human part in it that is much more related to personal emotion, and he can like think about something and empathize with other people more clearly and more effectively. On the other hand, for the fire in the gunpowder, Calcifer used to say like, "I hate the fire in the gunpowder. They have no manners." So I feel like it's somehow depicts the unjust war that is not like benefits anybody, but nobody realized it at the very beginning of the time. I don't know. It just
No, I
somehow
can
make
see
me
that.
think. Yeah.
It is interesting because it's kind of the two fires you're talking about contrast each other, because
Yeah.
Calcifer is not trying to start a war and kill people, to put it bluntly. But the other fire imagery we see, it's very dangerous. Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. Fire can be comforting, but it can also be very scary and life threatening. And then I also think of the Witch of the Waste going, what a pretty fire.
Yeah, honestly, I think whenever Hal was first flying over like the war-torn cities, I literally thought it was hell when I first watched the movie. I also was watching it was being translated, so maybe the translation was bad, but definitely the fire, it's very interesting, the juxtaposition between Calcifer, who's just like fun-loving and goofy, and then we've got just like this war, and it's just chaos and destruction. It's very interesting. Definitely has symbolism.
I agree.
Yeah. No, I love that it makes sense for you guys. 'Cause I have no idea if it makes sense or not, but yeah, that's why I'm thinking about a fire. Can I
I,
think the
I
two
think
contrast?
I think it's cool because you bringing that up is making me realize that there's a lot of dualism in the theme. Things can be bad or they can be good. It just depends on how they're applied. And we see that with fire, and then we see that with kind of how balancing is humanity. So that's
Yeah.
just, I don't know, that made me think of that.
Yeah,
That's really good.
that's cool. And it also connects so well with the next symbol I might bring up. It's about a window. Because I feel like the window is
Mhm.
something that framed the world in front of you, you know? Like you mentioned earlier, Sarah, you mentioned earlier, like how Sophie sitting in the shop and looking through the window to see everything that very chaotic in front of her eyes. It's just show like the realities that she's currently just facing, maybe. But when she lived in House Castle, there's a scene when she went upstairs, tried to clean the house, and
Yeah.
figure out like it's not very a window, but some
It's a balcony.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's something like that. And then she just opened a new vision of what she has never seen before, which we touch a lot about the beautiful landscape that it is. A lot
Yeah.
of like green prairies, flowers, lake. I don't know. It's it just contracts with all the setting that she has been through before.
Yeah.
So it's not
I'm pretty sure in that scene, because I remember that scene, I'm pretty sure she becomes younger also. Like this is a major thing throughout it all, where she's kind of like transitioning from seeming older to seeming younger. But I'm pretty sure in that scene she like straightens up. She's no longer hunched and stuff like that. And it kind of shows how her view of the world around her affects her mentally, really. Because before, when she's sitting in the hat shop, it's like depressing black billowing smoke, and then here it's like, oh, the nature and everything. It's a happier, makes her feel happier.
I feel like I get this feeling that Miyazaki is telling us that if we ever need to recuperate, to just like go live in the woods, because or the countryside, because we actually saw that in Kiki too, with the young artist Ursula, who goes to move into the woods to kind of escape the stress and the pressure of the city life and to recuperate, and then Kiki eventually does the same and stays with her. And so yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and we see that with Sophie when she moves out of the city. She becomes happier and more open and confident and everything. I'm trying to think, do we see this elsewhere in films we've seen?
Is Ponyo like that at all? I haven't watched Ponyo
I
in a
don't
really
think
long time.
Ponyo, but I kind of think of Spirit Away because the bathhouse is somehow similar to the city.
Yeah.
And when like Chihiro just moved to the Boilerman room, or maybe outside of that, going to the countryside with Yubaba's sister.
Oh yeah.
It's very kind of similar to like how you escape the like hectic life into like something more peaceful life.
And My Neighbor Totoro is probably
Yeah.
the largest example of this theme. So yeah, I love that. What's our next symbol? It's just supplying us with inspiration.
Okay, I have a lot. I don't know why I have a lot, but I rewatched it yesterday, so maybe that's why. And I cry over it, but yeah.
Very relatable.
Did we all cry at the end of the movie?
I cried when I first watched it.
Me too.
I cried. I in this Ghibli movie, it's not even as dark as the other ones, and we're still crying.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, that's what I found. Even when I first watched it, I was like, that wasn't even inherently sad. Like the ending was happy, but it was like so poignant and just lovely that I just
that you cry,
burst into tears like in my living room as I was watching it. And my parents were like,
I think it's seeing these people get what they deserve and that they have the potential for,
and like being able to like have healthy change and become the best versions of themselves.
I think there's a little bit of us wanting that for ourselves that I think brings on that emotion.
Definitely.
And I do know why I cry for one specific scene, but we're going to touch it later if I can remember. But yeah, okay. So going back to the symbol, I think another very interesting symbol I noticed is about a stair and the policy at the Madame Suleiman's place, because like it's a very long and high stair, but you have to like finish it up yourself without any assistant. And Sophie just interprets like a very rude way to treat people, especially like the elderly, who she is right now. And that's why like Hal hates to work with like those cruel people. But I don't know. I kind of think about that differently a little bit because I feel like the stair just represent like the obstacle that you have to face if you want to like reach the highest power. Because yeah, it's just like never easy to go up or even harder because there's so many steps ahead that you don't know like how long will it reach you to go there. And then Sophie, I think that's what helped her to prove her ability because she never plans to ask for any help at the beginning, even though the Witch of the Way is just like, why are you going so fast? Why don't you wait for me? Like, you will be done if I finished up this mess myself. It's just like show the different levels between the two characters, like how they going to reach to the higher power, which they desire or want to reach.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like I have a lot to say about that one, but I'm gonna save my commentary for when we talk more about Sophie because I feel like there's a lot of her personal development in that scene.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
do you have anything to say, Sarah?
Yeah, I think I'll save it for like in-depth character analysis
Yeah.
because we'll
That-
be here forever. if
Yeah,
we-
Yeah.
that is true. So maybe we should
Mhm.
move on to the next one.
Yeah, I'm going to finish up with one more, and I'm going to save like two more for a house analysis
Okay, cool.
of mine. But the only thing I want to mention is about the curse because for me, the curse is actually a reflection of each character weakness. Because Sophie, she doesn't have enough of like ability to recognize herself and also not confident enough. For how I think it's related to his childhood trauma or anything he has been through in the past. In the Witch of the Ways, I don't know, I put it down like her fear of getting old or the fear of like losing everything because you get older.
yeah,
So,
her greed.
She wants
I
Yeah.
remember
power.
in the movie. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't go into this because this is like kind of more analysis of her. But I will touch on it like really quickly. Whenever they meet Madame Solomon, she talks about how the Witch of the Waste was what fell prey to a demon of greed. That's what she talks about. So I think like that's kind of her burden is, because she wants Howl's heart. She wants all these different things.
She wants the cigar.
She wants she's yeah, she's kind of like overtaken by greed, and that's her.
Yeah.
That's her struggle throughout the movie.
yeah, I know for real.
So those are the main components of part 1. We did kind of want to end with another like brief comment on the physical war because next time we're going to transition into a different kind of war, an internal one. Sorry, that was very dramatic. So do we have any like last comments about the physical war?
I don't know. For me, it just reflect like how people can be very cruel even though they doesn't know what they're trying to fight for. I think that's why they call it like the unjust war in this movie. And I have a quote. I don't know why I write it here, but I'm going to read it. It's like hag wizard masquerading as monster. They will cry plenty later when they cannot regain human form.
Yes, that's a big aspect of the war is
Yeah.
how like you can lose your humanity. You can become desensitized. Yeah, I wrote a similar one. After the war, they won't even recall that they were human. And House says
Yes,
that too.
I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I also think it's interesting because you have these wizards like sacrificing their literal humanity to fight in the Kingdom's War, and then you meet the king, right? Whenever Howl kind of acts as the king, and then the real king comes in,
Yeah.
and you see he is just very flippant on the topic of war, and he's like, "I've got these new plans, and we'll crush them next time." And it's like you have people literally giving up their humanity for you, and then you've got this guy who's like
Yeah.
doesn't really feel the gravity of it.
He talks about it like it's a football game.
He's like,
Like it's a
he
strategy.
seems just like kind of foolish, and like he doesn't have enough regard for others and what the war would be putting them through. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's especially just this idea of what kind of Betty already said that just the lack of thought and compassion, which is why compassion through Hal and Sophie's love is so big, is because it's it's the largest contrast that we get to the evil that lies within the war. Like when the blob men show up, and I think Sophie says something, there are bombs falling. Why can't you put some fires out instead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think another point, I think either one of you said about how it's like they kind of like don't even know what they're fighting for. I think it might have been you, Betty. But there is a quote that I wrote down because it was interesting. It's whenever it's kind of towards the end, Hal and Sophie see a battleship near his childhood home, and Sophie asked, "Is that the enemy's, or is this one ours?" And Hal said, "What difference does it make?" Because it's like it doesn't, they're still bringing destruction, and no matter what side you are on, you're perpetuating kind of like just something that just chaos and damage to people, harm.
I wrote that quote down too. That was a very striking one. I think because of what you said, but also because it kind of shows that Hal, at this point, while he does still have his humanity, he is indifferent to killing the people that are actively participating in the war. So he is not entirely pacifist until I would say the end of the movie. And so that's kind of his change in his perception of war, because he's anti-war, but he's not originally pacifist, but by the end he is. So I think that's interesting. And then the actual wizard draft, that's the ethics of that is a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. So I think I have just that for the physical war, but for the inner war of each character, I have a lot to say. So maybe we stay tuned
I think
for
we've
the
said a
part
lot
2.
for part 1.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's been an hour.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let me end it. The first part. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So I think we're going to wrap up part 1 here, and for the next part, we're going to dig deeper into the inner conflict of each character, and yeah, just stay tuned. We're going to back soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.